Hello, I'm Jennifer Bishop. I help firms develop and implement strategy so that they can achieve their goals, and I wish to welcome you to building your strategic plan. Most firms aren't winning today. A winning firm has clarity. Clarity of the customers they want to serve, clarity of the opportunities and hurdles that can arise, clarity of the solutions that will meet the needs of their clients now and into the future. Strategic planning helps build this clarity. Let's have a look at a strategic planning model. A business should focus first on its competitive advantage. That competitive advantage, derived from its marketing, will drive the firm to success. So, what the competitive advantage is, it drives the marketing. Now, marketing is made up of who are your customers, what services do you provide, what solutions are you providing in those services, what education are you going to provide to your clients, what are the prices that you're going to charge, what value adding are you going to offer, and so on. This then drives your operation strategy, everything that you do. Now, a firm is built on firm foundations, and those foundations are innovation, technology, people, and everything else which we capture under financial. Things like, what are we going to invest in? Where are we going to get our money from? What assets are we going to use? And so on. So this is a strategic planning model that I use with my clients, which shows very clearly that what we need to focus on is having a clear competitive advantage and a marketing strategy which drive the firm. So let's have a look at a strategy day, I'm going to call it, although strategic planning generally operates over a much longer time. So when we're looking at a planning day, first thing we want to do is clear out the distractions and build the focus. The next thing is to dig really deep. Find out all about your business. Find out where it is now, and that way it can help you to be able to look forward, and looking forward and clarifying your goals can then make sure that we've got the strategies in place that will help you get to your goals. We need to consider the impact, and that's when we bring in scenario planning. Prioritization, of course, is what we must do because we can't do everything at once, and so we then go through and rank the options we have. A one-page plan is the best use for communication, so our strategies want to be demonstrated there. It keeps it simple, it's easy to understand and communicate. And then, making it work, we need to watch for the pitfalls. So these are the areas that we're going to look at now. Let's focus on getting the focus and removing the distractions. When facilitating the development of a strategic plan, it is best to have the mind clear, not worrying about what may or may not be captured. And so to enable that everyone is going to focus on developing the plan, and that includes you, we need to collect all the matters which are on your mind and those on the mind of your team. So first off, let's pretend we've got a magic wand with absolutely no limitations. If we've got that, what changes would you now make to your organisation? Could it be that you want to have a tighter sales team, improved financial reporting, removal of undesired clients, no bad debts, increased research and development? What else could there be? Make a list of them, now put them aside. The next thing we need to do is start focusing on what our business is about and do a SWOT. Now, a SWOT in its own begins to build focus, and what we do is we list those strengths and weaknesses which generally exist within the firm and the opportunities and threats which generally exist beyond it. By brainstorming the 5 or 7 items around about that number which will fill each category, that's a good start. But a SWOT, really, if we're going to have it, needs to do something for us. So what I like to do is get my clients thinking about how can we use these various elements to develop strategies and tasks that will help us move forward. So you can see here, we've put the strengths and the weaknesses and the opportunities and threats. We've now fleshed them out with those few items. We don't want to have any more than 7 in any of those boxes because it means that we're getting down to detail. But anyway, let's have a look at these. I like to get my clients to ask 4 questions. And those questions are, how can I use the strengths, which here are customers, business experience, people and financial, to commercialise these opportunities, which here are value-added services, acquisition of other firms, national expansion, and getting alliances. By combining these, for example, looking at our customers and business experience, using those with the opportunity of new services, we can go through and say, let's create new services which we can trial on our existing customers. Or let's have a look at the fact we're very strong financially, we've got a very strong balance sheet, and we're seeking to be able to expand. There are a number of firms that are available. Why don't we acquire a business? So the first step is to say, how can I use the strengths to commercialise these opportunities? Then, how can I use these strengths to overcome these threats? What do I need to do to make sure the weaknesses don't spoil these opportunities? And if the weaknesses combine with the threats, what do I need to do to fix it? So now we've actually got information that is starting to set us on the route to clarity so we can focus on building up a strategic plan. Now, when we develop our strategic plan, what we're actually doing is closing a gap between where we are now and where we want to get to. So the first thing we need to do is be very, very clear about where we are now. Because it's a strategic plan, we are going to be looking to the future. We're going to be saying, where are we going to be in around about 3 years or so? Now, I work with my clients in about 3 years, although sometimes we'll work a bit longer than that. And the reason that it's 3 years and not 10 is because of the fact that there is so much change coming through in the environment that looking at 10 can be a bit of a waste of time. However, if you're in aeronautics or something like that, really you have to look at 10 years. But what we've got now is we've got parameters. Where are we now? Where do we want to get to? Then what we're doing is we're closing that gap. That's what we're doing with strategic planning, saying how are we going to close that gap. So the first thing that we have to do is focus on the business. We need to know it in detail. The things that I like to look at are what's our competitive advantage now? And what do we want it to be? Who are our clients? What are the services that we offer? Who are our competitors? What are the people or the alliances that we need? What are our processes like? What's our financial situation? What's happening in the industry? What must we be excellent in if we're going to be a winner? So let's look at where we are. Clients are key to the business, of course. We don't sell to them. They buy from us. Without them, there is no business. And yet many firms skip on this step, considering that demographic questions are adequate, such as what sector are they in, what size, what location. But that's only the skeleton. It is the problems and the desires which need to be uncovered. Brambles, an Australian firm, most of my examples are firms based in Australia, though some have global connections. Brambles started out as a logistics company, which is now known for its provision of reusable pallets, crates and containers. Some of its clients are growers, and knowing that their major problem was wages costs, Brambles looked for a way to reduce those costs. After much research, it came up with a specialised container which enables the pickers to place the fruit or vegetable straight from the field into the container. That container is then carted through to the grocer or the markets, and it can be put actually up on the shelves in that format. Now, what that has meant, that by working with the problems besetting the growers, that is, the wages costs, Brambles found a solution that helped them to become more profitable. The result has been an expansion of Brambles' service line, and it's also been an expansion on its market. What it has done for the growers, of course, is help them improve their profits. It has also meant that there is a shorter time between when items are picked, when they get to market, and there's less handling, which means that the growers can pick later, which has the added advantage that the flavour is much stronger. So when you're actually looking at your customer, consider the problems that beset them. Think about the problems that the firm has. Think about the problems that the sector has. Then, what does the buyer have personally as a problem, and the influencer to that buyer? And what about the person who is actually using the services? What problems do they have? Get that clear, then we can start looking at what solutions are going to add the most value to them. And the solutions, of course, come from the products and services that we offer. We have to create services for them, not for something that we like to do. Many of my clients are in professional services, and most believe, at least initially, that it is their technical skills which add value to their clients' operations. But the highest level of skill may not be needed, and it's very expensive. What may be wanted is, for example, on-time delivery. On-time delivery is a product of process effectiveness, not of high technical skills. Therefore, providing support for a skill that is not needed is wasteful and does not add value to the client's operations. By focusing on something that they don't want, or I should say, don't perceive as beneficial, you are wasting money and also opportunity. So you might like to consider these questions. What is the value added to the customer by your product or service? What problems are you solving for them? And how easy is it for your customer to use it? How easy is it for the customer to transact with your firm? How does each of your service lines build your competitive advantage or demonstrate it? And what value is assigned by the buyer to each feature? Is the service experience consistent? Is the quality uniform? And an interesting question that I like is, are products bought by staff and displayed with pride? So now we've got an idea about our clients and identified their problems, and we've assessed their services. Now let's have a look at our competitors. When we're looking at our competitors, we want to know such things as how are they meeting the needs of our target market? How different, where are they strong in that we're weak? Do we need to be strong where they are? Are you watching the right firms? Who could be starting out in a garage who will be a force in a year or two? How does your research and development and your pipeline of service innovation compare to theirs? Why do they attract the customers and the staff and suppliers that you want? And also, what alternatives do your product or service exist? What is happening around your industry that might take the customer's money away from your service? Now we're getting to get that clear. Let's start looking at our people. Now, with our people, we're thinking not only about the people that we have within our organisation, but this can also capture alliances. But that's for another time. So let's just have a look at people. People costs are up to 65% of a services firm. Not only is the cost high, but when we use them well, it improves efficiency and profits. Atlassian is a company which is famous for its quirky management style, and its Sydney office achieved the best place to work in Australia in 2014 through BRW. The firm has a highly flexible work practices, and it's focused on a culture that will attract the very best. Now, as I said, it's quite quirky. When somebody is employed by Atlassian, they immediately get a paid holiday, presumably so they're relaxed when they start. They've got other benefits as well, pool table, a day a week to work on a project of their own choice and what have you. But it's not these benefits that won the award. What won the award was because of the fact that the firm is investing in practices which encourage transparency and employee empowerment. People want to feel as though they're empowered, and so in Atlassian, the staff have the ability to have regular open meetings with the founders. They can also contribute to the financial plans and the strategic plans, and there is minimum bureaucracy around things like performance management. Now, what that does is it makes the firm a very attractive place to be. You're competing on the open market not only for your customers, but for the best people. So, let's think about some questions. Let's think about the fact of what are the current skill set that we've got in our staff? Does it meet our existing business needs? Do the people have the ability and the attitude to change as the business changes? And later you'll be asking, what are the skill sets we need for the growth that we want? And do we have them? What are the values? What's real, that is what's happening in the firm, and what's on the wall? And who are key staff? Key staff are ones that have the closest relationship with clients. They're the ones around which the organisation operates. We keep them a little bit in cotton wool. If we've got staff in that capacity, what happens is that we are at risk because they may take the clients with them. They might actually take their knowledge away, and what will happen then? So we need to know who is key. We also need to think about what is the level of trust in the organisation. This comes in with accountability. If your staff are constantly looking over their shoulder to make sure that somebody else is doing the work so that the staff member themselves can get their work done, then they're not fully focused. Do staff get a feeling of meaning from their work? More meaning, more engagement. And why do your staff work for you and not for your competitor? Why do staff work in the field that they do? You will need to ask a whole lot more questions, of course, but this is something to start on. Money is made through procedures or processes. If you want to grow your firm, you need to invest in good processes. These are manual and these are technological. Good processes ensure that the client gets what she wants when she expects it. And good processes make sure that when things go wrong, they are well handled. Michael Gerber is the author of the E-Myth, and in there he talks about the need for good processes and uses a curious story about a haircut. And the story goes that he goes and visits a barber for the first time, and the barber gave him the best haircut ever. But what it involved was that when Gerber came in, he was offered a cup of coffee. The barber said that, well, I want to wash your hair because it means that the cut will work better. And he washed his hair, then he came back and the barber only used scissors, he didn't use shears. He kept getting offered cups of coffee and he was blown away by the experience and the haircut was brilliant. Now, the next time he went back, he was offered a cup of coffee when he came in, but he wasn't offered to have the haircut. There were shears that were used as well as clippers and no endless coffee. The haircut, again, however, was brilliant. The next time he visited, things had changed yet again. This time, the barber washed his hair, but it was after cutting it and before the trim. He got not a cup of coffee this time, although he got a glass of wine. Only scissors were used, no clippers. The service was completely different to what he had before. The cut, however, was still brilliant. Gerber never went back, not because of the fact that the cut was poor, but because he did not know what to expect. There was no consistency of experience. People want to know what they're going to get. So, questions to consider. Which processes ensure that your products and services are uniform in quality and service experience? And of course, provide the solutions that your clients need. What is being done to reduce the internal red tape? Which processes are key, and how do you evaluate their importance? What would happen if they're interrupted? And how is knowledge collected and used? Now, financial. Strategies must be financed, a fact that is often forgotten when strategic plans are made. We need to have a strong enough balance sheet. We need to know what the cash demands are going to be. We need to know what resources we're going to need to invest. When? Cash flow statement. Without sufficient resources, investment in a strategy can be wasted. Costs need to be managed. Timing needs to be managed. Every firm must minimise its costs and be able to anticipate when its resources are going to be required. Rio Tinto is a global resources company, and it does cost minimisation really well. It sells iron ore along with other commodities and precious gems. Rio Tinto actually has a strategy of cost minimisation, which goes beyond just being able to manage costs. Iron ore is a commodity that is dug from the ground and shipped in its raw state to its customers in the far-flung regions of the world. Customers which then make it into steel. Iron ore, being a commodity, has wide fluctuations in price. The only way to survive doing this is to keep costs low. With its strategy of being this low-cost producer, it has introduced technology into its high-cost areas. It now has remotely operated trucks, remotely operated drills, and shortly, its rail will be remotely operated as well. Its determination to have the lowest cost has driven a strategy of excellence in technology, meaning that it is partnering with firms in its supply chain, as well as with universities, to ensure that its advantage continues to deliver. So when you're looking at the financial side of the business, you need to think about what is the strength of the balance sheet, what is the revenue spread, that is, how many clients do you actually have? Are there a few key clients which, if you're to lose them, you'd be at risk? How do you cost? Is it activity-based costing? Is it job costing? What is it? How do you price? Is it competitive pricing? Is it value pricing? Is it cost plus? What are your fixed cost levels? What are you investing in now? What's the age of your assets? Have a look at the past. What have been your past growth levels in profit, overheads and revenues? The next thing we need to think about is industry. And a good place to start is looking at what can happen if you don't. Kodak is a story where information about industry trends was available, but it was ignored. Kodak was the inventor of the digital camera in 1975, but it refused the evidence in its own research, evidence that was done in 1981, that the inventions in the photography industry were opening up to the potential of digital camera. Their research said that by the end of the 80s, it was likely that digital camera sales and the way that it operates would outsell the filmless sales and operations that Kodak had. Management didn't like this. They said it was interesting, but it said that its film-less photography was what they wanted to focus in. As a result, the great leader of photography is no more. So when we're looking at industry, we need to be able to think about what are the standout changes in our sector now? What is it likely to happen in the future? What's happening in our client sectors? What's happening in other sectors as well? What's happening globally? We also need to be able to think about how good is our knowledge. So how well connected are we to the industry thought leaders? And in fact, what is the level of our thought leadership in the firm? What's leading your decisions? Is it bias? Is it hubris? Or is it fact? So now we're on to the fact that winning firms are excellent. They need to be excellent in whatever you think is important to be able to provide your solutions to make you the best. Orica is the world's largest provider of commercial explosives and blasting systems. It works in open cut mining, oil and gas, civil construction, and so on. Now, explosives are loud, noisy, and scary things, and they're used to break up rocks on the surface and underground. Blasting unleashes plumes of dust as well as flying rocks. It requires that areas are closed during the blasting. The dust and rubble causes safety problems, and the closures impact productivity. Where Orica found its niche was in accuracy. It understood that the people in the mines, as well as those in head office, were fearful of the product. So Orica invested heavily in finding out how to control the blast. Now, when they were looking at this, they also saw that problems were the dust and the rockfall and so on. So they thought that controlling the blast would also reduce the dust, and it would mean that the rockfall was predictable. What they did was, by becoming excellent, they were able to help their client in personal health and safety, reduce the fear of the product, and increase the productivity because the areas to be closed could be smaller. Where are you excellent? And now that we've got lots of knowledge, what is our competitive advantage? And what do we need our competitive advantage to be able to ensure the longevity of our firm? Now, the ideal situation for a firm to be is where there is uncontested market space, where it has made the competition irrelevant. But for most firms, that is not the reality. For most firms, how they operate is by ensuring that there are a number of things within their business that, when intertwined, mean that it's very hard to replicate. McDonald's is one that does this well. McDonald's have a number of elements to its competitive advantage. Its stores are on sites with high passing trade. The food is ready quickly for those on the way to somewhere else. People are looking for convenience, and so the food is created with this in mind. The quality of the food is not as great as what you could get from some other burger stores because its clients want fast, cheap food and are prepared to have reduced flavour to get it. It also has a lot of options which they can very rapidly tailor so that the clients get what they want, how they want it, and to the levels that they want. Its advantage is integrated. It makes it very difficult to be replicated by competitors. Is this the case with your competitive advantage? So, what is it that sets your firm apart? And is it based on a principle or is it based on an activity? How is it reinforced throughout the firm? Do your clients, people, suppliers even know what it is? And why does the advantage that you've chosen excite the people in your firm? So we've looked at the base information, starting with where we are now. We've started to have a look at, well, where do we want to be in 3 years' time? We then need to think about, well, we know what we've got now, where can we be at that time? Then we now need to think about the hows, and we've already been collecting a lot. So let's make sure we don't miss anything. Let's actually think about scenarios. And in scenario planning, what we want to do is go through and say, what if? What could cause the firm's collapse? And then think about, what do we need to do to be ready for that? What could stop your strategic plan being implemented? So what can we do to be ready for that? What could ... Go through as many scenarios as you possibly can and go through and look at them in some depth. Hopefully the scenarios will never come true, but if they do, you've got so much information that you'll be ready. The more information you get to support your strategic plan, the better the quality of the plan will be. But now we have got a lot of information. We need to be able to manage it. We need to think about how are we going to manage it. So here I would like you to think about a thing called issue ranking. We want to be able to go through and select those items which are going to give us the most benefit. And being a strategic plan, what we want to do is think about our ability to support the competitive advantage. We need to rank all the items that we think we want to do by the ability to support the competitive advantage and the opportunity for improvement. Putting them down in this format starts enabling us to focus. Now you can see here we had 10 items which came into various quadrants, and we ended up getting 4 in the quadrant that we'd like to focus on. Now there is one thing about strategic planning, as there is about anything that we do in life. We cannot focus on more than 3 things at a time. Just can't do that. It's much better actually to focus only on one, complete that and move on. But life doesn't often let us do that. Now, why is that the case? Well, it comes from a thing called the law of the diminishing returns, which says that if you've got 1 to 3 goals, you're likely to complete 1 to 3 to a level of excellence. If you've got 4 to 10, then you're likely to complete 1 to 2. If you've got more than 10, it's unlikely you'll complete any to a level of excellence. So bear that in mind when you're working out how many strategies you want to work with during the year. Now we've got all of that, we need to put it into something that's very simple and easy to communicate. A 1-page plan is good for this. As you can see on this document, we've got where are we now, where we're going to get to, and we've got all our strategies down there. Now you will have worked out some actions as well as you've gone through and collected all the information as you've been going along. But frequently you won't get the actions until you do your implementation. So that may or may not be completed at that time. But the important thing is that when it is completed, you have who is going to be accountable and when are they going to be asked to have it completed by. You can see how this actually cascades through the organisation all the way down to the individual. So the individual can link their work through to the strategies. Everyone is aligned. So we've got it on the plan. And have we actually covered everything? Have we done the things that we need to do to ensure that the strategic plan will do what it has to do? These are pitfalls that we need to be wary of. First one is ownership. People will be engaged if they've been involved in the strategic planning process. Get them involved from the earliest possible time. If we want to get anything done, we need to have accountability. So when you're rolling it out, make sure that they're accountable. Without communication, nothing gets done. And sometimes it's forgotten that the people who go away, do the strategic plan, often their resort or wherever, they come back and they think that it's going to be logical to everyone else. It probably is not. So communicate, communicate, communicate. Make sure it's understood. Also, be aware of the assumptions that you make. If you're going to make assumptions, make sure during the implementation you test those assumptions. And when you're making decisions, are those decisions being made keeping the strategies in mind? And how often are you going to be doing the strategic planning process? Now, we spoke earlier about the fact that you want to be looking 3 years out, but the plan we're doing is only 1 year. So what you want to have is measures at the end of 1 year. That is, where do you want to be at the end of 1 year? Where do you want to be at the end of 2 years? And where you want to be at the end of 3. The only thing is, though, we don't want to create a plan and either stick it on a cupboard or create a plan and enforce that plan for the year. We need to come back and review it regularly. That doesn't mean we change the strategies, but it may mean we change the tactics. Now, following on for preparing the plan, we want to make sure we're not necessarily going to follow the plan. The plan is made on assumptions, it has to be. Reality will always be different. So beware following the plan without thought. And the last one is conflict. Often plans are not made in a conflicted environment. And what I mean there is that people who are engaged, who are impassioned about what they're doing, will have opinions. And if the strategic plan is being developed well, there'll be areas that will say that we believe that this is the way we should go, and others will be saying we wanted to go another way. People need to be able to air their conflict so that they begin to understand what's actually happening, and build up the knowledge throughout the firm. If there is no conflict, it means that people are not engaged in the process, or it may mean that the culture penalises innovative thought. So if you're not getting conflict, work out how you can generate it. So we've got the strategic plan, it's all beautiful, but we need to be aware again that no battle plan or strategic plan ever survives contact with the enemy. Be aware that whatever you create is beautiful on paper, but when you actually put it out in the real world, the assumptions may not hold. So just to give you some questions to go. Is your competitive advantage sufficient for the year ahead? Did the current year strategy deliver the results you wanted? If so, what are the lessons? If not, what will you need to change? How will you hold yourself and your team accountable and guarantee the successful implementation of your new strategies? Have you addressed in your plans the blockages that will prevent you achieving your goals? And how will you evolve your products and services to address the issues being faced by your target market? Now, if you would like to have any further information on this, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.